Okay, so your new album, your new CD.
Yeah.
Um, First, I'm interested. What does the title mean? 1520.
It's I'm not actually sharing it with people very much because
Oh,
it it does have a meaning. Obviously, it's not just some random numbers tossed together.
okay.
Um, but it is actually if you listen to Joan Chamorro presenta Koldo Munné, one of my there's three songs of mine in that album, and one of the songs is called 1520 actually, but with
Oh, okay.
letters, not numbers. And so it's that song specifically talks about a love story. And
Okay.
so this album it actually talks about that same love story. So I wrote that song for that album, and then from that song,
You wanted to expand it,
yeah, that's right,
do
and the
more with it.
other album was born. And so it's a meaningful number that it does mean something. But I'm not
Okay.
actually sharing it. I'm very comfortable with letting it be a secret,
Oh, okay.
a mystery.
And well, that's not so bad sometimes. Um, so I have the feeling that it's going to sound very different from what most people hear from you and in the band and even on your presenter, because I saw a few very brief clips you put on Instagram of you conducting the string section. And so is there any way you want to describe what most of the music will sound like for
it's
people?
it's actually I'm usually not a huge fan of like labeling music with like very specific words, but um I like to think of it as, it's obviously not what I've been doing all of these years,
Yeah.
because with Chamorro and with San Andreu Jazz Band we do a lot of traditional jazz, and
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely not what this album is. I like to say that it is a mix between my musical roots, which are jazz and classical music. Those are like the two kinds of music that I know the most and that I've studied. So that's where my musical like my knowledge comes
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
So it's a mix of both of those things mixed with other different inspirations and references that I have, like Broadway music, pop music, rock music, country music. So it's a mix of different things. But I would say that the thing you can find the most in the album is jazz in the way like the melodies are written and the harmonies and all of that, and classical music in the way the songs are arranged, and
Mhm.
especially with like there's a lot of instruments and that I use and then I write in a very classical way, trying to
Yeah.
recreate what I learned while I was studying classical music.
Hmm.
So that's how I would explain it. But again, I'm not such a fan of labeling
Yeah, I know you.
music,
Yeah, I know you said that.
but yeah,
You
that's I think that's the best way that I can tell you what the style of the album is.
Because I know you said you don't even want to describe yourself as a jazz musician. You want to describe yourself as a musician.
Yeah,
So
that's
you're
right.
not leaving anything out, or you're not limiting yourself
That's it.
to
It's actually like
freestyling.
the way it happened is that for me, when I'm like when I sat at because this album is all original songs, and when I sit at the piano or whatever and I'm writing a song, I'm not like, okay, I'm gonna write a jazz song or I'm gonna write a pop
Yeah.
song or it's just like I'm writing a song because probably I have something to tell or something that I want to talk about, and the style of the music, it's just the way I put these feelings into the song, but it's not, yeah, it's not something that I plan. It's just something that happens, and so it can be a very jazzy song, but it can be a very rock song or maybe like a very cheesy piano ballad, you know. Whatever it is, I don't plan it ahead, you know. It's just like whatever happens when I sit at the piano is what the song needs, you know.
So, are these songs you came up with each, along a time? You didn't sit down and say, "I want to create a new album." I mean, it was just sort of bit by bit. When you think of something that you want to do, then you do
Yeah,
it
it
and you
it
write.
was, the way it happened is that like this is, as I was explaining to you, this is a conceptual album, which means that it tells a story. And so the way I did it is that it tells this love story that I talk about, it tells it chronologically. And
Okay.
so there were some songs that it's a real love story, so a story that happened to me. And so there were some songs that I wrote at the moment in which those things were happening, which was like 2 or 3 years ago. And then there were some songs that I wrote afterwards when I knew and when I decided that it was going to be an album. There were some songs that I wrote afterward to kind of complete the bits that were missing from the story, you know?
So it just developed over time.
Yeah,
And
that's it. That's it.
okay. And when I saw that video of you with the string section, I was wondering where do those people come from? How do you know those people? That's a
Well,
lot of musicians. I
that's
saw.
there's a lot of musicians in this album, that's for sure.
And
There's
singers, right? You had a chorus
yeah,
on some.
I actually have the exact number. There's 63 people in this
Wow.
album. 63 people. And yeah, they come from different places. I studied in I did a professional degree in classical saxophone at Oriol Martorell, which is a school slash conservatory here in Barcelona, and everyone there studied classical music. So especially with the string section, most of the people comes from there. But yeah, a lot of people comes from there, from Oriol Martorell, in which I studied classical music. Then other people comes from, most of the people I would say comes from Conservatori del Liceu, which is where I'm studying my jazz saxophone degree. There's also people that just come from, friends that I have, or even there's people that I met at the music school in San Andreu, where I first started studying music. So there's basically, it's actually really
How-
beautiful, but because it's a mix of
Yeah.
a lot of people that I've been getting to know along the way, especially with the choir, that we were talking about. It was, I think, 36 people there,
Wow.
and 36 people from very different moments in my life, and suddenly getting to have them all in the same place. It's actually very, very meaningful for me, and very important that this album was 100% recorded with my friends, and
It's
for
nice
me.
to have a lot of friends, I guess.
Yeah, I
But
guess so. I guess so.
I can't count 63 friends that I have. So.
Well, I'm in a point in my life in which I'm studying, and that means I'm studying music, and that means that I'm
Yeah.
surrounded by a lot of people who are really great human beings and great friends, and also great musicians, and who want to, to do things, to do
Yeah.
to play together, to, it's and that's what I find most beautiful about it. I mean, there's also friends in my year at Liceu who are also starting their own projects that I'm also being a part of, and so I record a saxophone for your album and you record something for mine, so it's kind of
Yeah,
how it
yeah.
works, and it's really beautiful that we're able to help us out in, help each other this way.
Uh-huh. Well, it sounds interesting. Sounds very ambitious. Like you want like a big kind of project rather than just a few musicians in a studio and doing older standards or
I
things
did,
like that.
I guess, you know, for me, the choir, the string section, all of that, it's not something that I like 100% needed. Like I could very much have recorded this album without like the 36 person
Yeah.
choir,
Uh-huh.
but it was just an excuse to bring as much friends to be a part of it as I could. So it's actually like that was the whole point of it. But also there was a part of when I write music, I don't know if it happens to other people, but usually when I write music, I'm also thinking of the arrangement that I want for that song that I'm writing. It's not like something that happens afterwards. It happens usually all at the
Yeah.
same time. And so when I decided that I wanted to record the album, it was very hard for me to conceive those songs without the arrangement that I had thought of. So
Right.
it's just
Yeah.
like, if I'm really gonna do this and if I'm really gonna spend my money and my time into recording this album, I'm gonna do it the way I've been imagining it, which is with all these people and with all these instruments
Yeah.
and with all these arrangements. So for me, it was something that was really very necessary, and as I said, an excuse to bring all of
Yeah.
my friends in.
And usually, do you find the songwriting and the arranging, does it come easily to you, or is it a struggle sometimes, or do
Uh
you really know what you want it to sound like pretty much from the start?
it depends. It depends. Sometimes I sit at the piano. Usually, I write at the piano. And I'm trying to, and I have usually like sometimes I know what I want the song to sound like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes it just happens. And sometimes I do struggle a lot. There's actually one of the songs in this album that I wrote like, and I'm not lying, like 5 or 6 versions of that same song. It's one of the songs that I
Yeah.
wrote afterwards, and I was trying to like write a song that would fit that bit of story that was missing. And as I was saying, I wrote like 5 or 6 versions of that same song that talked about that same part of the story, because it was just, I couldn't find the right song to fit, you know,
Yeah.
to fit in that part. So yes, sometimes I do struggle quite a lot, and sometimes it just happens like that. It really depends.
It sounds like, since you have a lot, all of these songs are telling a story, one story.
Hmm.
Uh, it makes me think of whether you see maybe in your future doing more with maybe musical theater or something, where you have songs that are part of a story, not necessarily your story, but a story, and with the more complex arrangements. Is that something that you've been doing or thinking about,
You,
or
you
seeing?
you got me there. I do. Well, I'm a huge. I've always been a huge fan of musicals, and I've always been a huge fan of movie soundtracks, and so
Mhm.
that's all
Yeah.
something that I wish I will be able to do at some point in my life. You know, even if it's like writing a musical or being a part of it, like as an actor
Yeah.
or as a musician or whatever. That's a world that I really want to be a part of at some point in my life. And also, I've always wanted to write soundtracks for
Mhm.
movies. It's something that
Yeah.
I've really wanted to do, and it's something that, and it's also those two passions. I also brought them into this album, because it's something that has really inspired me throughout my life and throughout my musical career. So yeah, I actually like to say that this this album is like a musical, because
Right.
it has a lot of, you know in the style of the songs, you hear a lot of like, you know old jazz Broadway music
Uh,
in some songs. um but also conceptually, it is more similar to a musical
Yeah,
in the terms of
yeah,
how the story is told, and it's also divided into, like, the album is 9 songs, and so the first 4 songs are the first act, and then there's the 5 song, which would be like the intermission or the interlude, and then there's 4 other songs that are the second act. So
oh,
also the way it is structured,
yeah.
it's also kind of like a musical. So musicals were definitely a big inspiration for this album, and it's definitely something that I want to do at some point in the future. Yeah, in the future.
Hmm. That doesn't surprise me. I could tell. I could tell. uh, I think we got a lot about what you wanted to say about the album, and it's still sort of going to be a little mystery to a lot of people until they hear it, and then
Yeah.
maybe they'll connect and they'll make the connections between everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I don't know.
the most important thing is the music.
What?
The most important thing is the music itself. So
Yeah.
you know that I'm sure you worked very hard on it, and
I
you
did.
seem to enjoy the process anyway.
I really did. I really did. I'm very, comfortable with everything, because, I feel like, obviously, with music everything is so uncertain, so you never know if, like, no one can tell you if, no matter how many hours and money and passion you
Yeah,
put into your project, no one can tell you if it's going to work, or if people's going to like it, or if people's going to listen to it. So I'm very comfortable thinking that, I've enjoyed every single part of the process so much,
mm-hmm.
and I've also learned so much from it. So I'm just like, even you know if it doesn't work as well as I thought it would, or as I wish it would, no one can take all of that enjoyment and all of that learning from me. So I'm very comfortable thinking that. So it's actually,
Yeah. Well,
I'm
and
I
also
I am I am a little, as we were talking about, people, the people who know me, they know me for doing more traditional jazz. So I am sometimes a little bit concerned that people are gonna be like, wait, what is this? This is not what he used to do.
yeah, yeah,
But at the same time, I'm like, it's I don't know. I mean, you know, jazz is a part of who I am musically, but this is also another part of who I am musically, which
mm-hmm.
is not too far away from jazz,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's something different, but that's also part of me. And I'm putting
yeah,
it
yeah,
out there. And maybe jazz is for, like, my jazz persona is for a certain audience, and my, 15-20 persona is for another audience. So it's just, yeah. But sometimes I do get a little worried about, what people may
well,
think
yeah. I
about
mean,
it. But that humans and musicians are always evolving and always in
yeah,
movement. So I think that it is very natural that, you you write an album 5 years ago and it sounds this way, and then 5 years later you write something else, and there's obviously 5 years of musical and personal growing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's obviously gonna sound different. So it's
Oh,
it's
yeah, yeah.
it's just, I think it's something that very naturally happens.
And and you also have the finished product. You can hold it in your hand, and you can say to yourself, "I did this. This is my piece. This is my art. This is
That's it.
my."
That's also,
And
I'm that's also why I'm like, sometimes I do worry about these things, but then I'm like, I'm very comfortable with it, because I'm very proud of it. It's
that's
been
great.
it's been a lot of time working in it, and now that I actually have the final result,
Yeah.
I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of what I hear. I'm very proud of how it sounds, and you know yeah, and
Well,
so
this
that
is.
that that just makes me really happy, and
I'm
makes me
really.
also want to share it with people.